Cullen goes live in 2 minutes. Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Hey, welcome to the program. Are you all there? Have you recovered? Okay, good. Because we have a singular topic today, and it ain't Donald Trump, and it's not hockey. It's marijuana, and it's medical marijuana. And the gentleman who joins me is the CEO of, listen to this for a corporate name, U.S. Cannabis Pharmaceutical Research and Development. And Michael Patterson is in town. He's going to be doing 2 seminars for those people who might be thinking about getting into what's going to be a huge new part of the healthcare sector, and that is medical marijuana. Now that the guys in Harrisburg actually passed a bill. I mean, they passed a bill! Okay. A lot of us don't know much about what that bill is. I got a feeling you know it forward, backward, and inside out. Have you?
Pretty much.
And as bills go, does that one... Is Pennsylvania's law ridiculously restrictive, horribly complicated, or straightforward? How would you rate it?
You know what, Lynn? I got to tell you, it's really right down the middle.
Uh-huh.
And so it's good. So what you're getting is you get enough patient access, but yet the rules are tight enough to where the people who don't need it don't get it. And so that's what we like. And so what we keep telling people, especially when they come to our seminars and people out there in Radio Land, is that you need to understand that this is a very good program that you have, and you're very lucky that your state legislatures actually looked at other states and saw what didn't work. And they said, let's fix that and make sure it works here in Pennsylvania.
So when this thing passed, everybody is whoopee, whoopee, yay, yay, yay. And then they start seeing how, well, it's not going to be implemented. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're going to be, you're going to be retired by the time this gets off the ground. It takes a lot of time.
It does, but what I want the public to know is that you don't want to rush this. The modern pharmacy industry has been created over the last 80 to 100 years. So now we're expecting the medical marijuana industry, which is similar but not the same, to be up and running in less than 2. So what I tell people is what's going to happen in the next 6 months is the Department of Health is writing all the day-to-day operational things. How do you apply for a license? How do you get a grower processor? What form do you use for this? What form do you use for that? So that takes time. Go ahead.
Is there a license to grow and a different license to dispense. I
Correct.
mean, yeah,
So they're going to have 25, they call them grower processor licenses. So you'll
just 25 in the entire state. Only 25 folks are going to get that.
to start. So they left the door open down the road that they can add more. But that's a good start. But to give you an example, the state of New York only has 5 places to be a grower processor. And it's too limited. And they only have 20 stores or dispensaries.
In the whole state?
Right. Exactly. It's too restrictive. It doesn't work. So Pennsylvania said, you know what? Let's don't do that because people need this medicine and they need to be able to access it. So they said, we're going to have 25 grower processor licenses.
Okay.
And up to 150 stores. Now, the way they're going to do the stores, they're going to give 50 dispensary licenses. So each license can have 3 locations. So we're hoping that there's going to be a lot of good access. And so the state is going to divide those dispensaries into zones. And they haven't determined the zones. So if just for argument's sake, say there's 3 zones. Say there's the Pittsburgh zone, the Central PA zone, and then like the Philadelphia zone.
Right.
So they're going to divide those into those zones. And whoever applies will be graded on only the people who apply in those zones.
Okay.
So there's a lot of strategy to this. So they did this in Florida, and it was a very bad bill, and that's a long story, but they had these zones, and what a lot of providers or people looking to get licenses did, they applied in every zone, so they had the best possible chance of getting a license. But however, you have to put up a lot more money to do that because you're applying in it. You have to have a building, you have to have all these things set in every single zone. So
I don't think many people are thinking about all of
well,
this.
we have a lot of professional people coming. I mean, we've got people coming, Lynn, from Indiana, Pennsylvania, of course, West Virginia, Maryland, Florida. We have people flying up from Florida.
When you say professional, what kind of professions are they coming out of that are interested in getting into this? Everything.
You have you have stockbrokers, you have attorneys, you have accountants, you have hedge fund managers, you have everybody. We had a group from California who flew into Philadelphia last week just for the seminar because they want to invest on the East Coast.
Okay,
in
well,
marijuana.
What about the poor old potheads who thought they were going to get in on all this?
And you know what? There's room for them. And this is what people don't understand because we're going to need thousands of jobs. And so say if I'm a, quote, pothead that I like to grow and I know how to grow, well, all these grower processor locations are going to need employees. We had a young kid who came. He was probably 22. He came and he said, you know, I spent this money to come to this seminar in Philadelphia because I know when people start looking for jobs, nobody has experience. So if I've made the effort to go out to these seminars and learn and educate myself, then when I walk into to do an interview, I'm going to know all these different things. And I told him, I said, we have a really thick manual that we give everybody. And we said, look, bring this manual with you, show you this is my initiative. Ask me any question. I'll be able to answer it. You're going to get hired on the spot because everybody else is not going to take that initiative. And literally nobody in the whole state has experience. So imagine when you're applying for a job, everybody has 0 experience.
So this is really odd if you think about it, right? Everybody's got 0 experience. A lot of go-getters and entrepreneurs are gathered waiting, and it would behoove anybody to have as much information, as possible.
Well, Lynn, right now, information's king. And so in this business, because it's happening so quickly, so the more you can learn the quickest, then you're going to have more of an opportunity than other people who don't take that initiative.
Okay, so let's just start now. Let's say I'm somebody. Let's take it not from the dispenser and the people seeking the licenses. Let's take it from a poor soul who is looking forward to being able to get medical marijuana. Okay. They're all excited. They're a little bummed that it's going to take years, right? Is there anything they can be doing now to get themselves prepared?
The best thing I tell people, talk to your physicians. Because the way it's going to work is the physicians are going to have to opt in to do this. So what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to take an online class, like a 2-hour class, and then they're going to have to petition the state to be a provider. So once the Department of Health agrees, they're going to get a little certification on their license, their medical license.
That they'll be able to prescribe.
Not prescribe, recommend, because you're not allowed by law to prescribe a Schedule I drug. And marijuana is a Schedule I drug, right? It gets technical. So technically, it's recommend. So they recommend.
So they don't write you a script. They recommend?
They write you a recommendation. So what the Department of Health is going to do, it's basically semantics. They're going to give you a form. It looks like similar to a prescription form, and you fill it out. You'll take that to the Department of Health, or you'll mail it in, right?
Yeah.
They'll send you an ID card.
Okay.
On this ID card, it'll look a lot like a driver's license. So it'll have a little black thing on the back. And so you'll go into the marijuana dispensary. They'll scan it to make sure everything's up to date. And you'll go in.
It's going to have your picture on it.
Everything. It'll be just like a driver's license. And then
Will the TSA take that?
No, they could. So when you walk in, basically, the doctor will. Some doctors will actually write the form. Meaning, if I go to a dermatologist and I have a skin cancer, I could go in and say, "Hey, my doctor says recommends that me to get a skin cancer cream in order to help heal my cancer." So you could get a cream, but they're going to have these vials like for electronic cigarettes that you can't get that. You see what I'm saying?
If you've got a dermatological cancer, they're not going to give you...
Right. You can't... The way it works in California is it doesn't work because you can just go in for anything.
I know.
Here, it's going to be very strict. So they're going to... on your little ID card, your medical marijuana ID card, you're going to have the form in which you can have it. So the doctor can delineate form. He could say, you can only have a cream, or you can only have oil, or you can only have e-cigarette, electronic cartridges.
Time out. You know... just between you and me, I've smoked a few joints in my life. So
there's nothing wrong with it.
No, not at all. I love it. So, okay. Why the hell can't you just go to a dispensary and get a bag of pot and roll your own joints?
Mm-hmm. And that would be great. And some states allow home growing where you can grow it at home.
Really?
But out west. But the challenge here is... To me, if you want my background's medicine. So I was in, I'm a licensed occupational therapist, a licensed nursing home administrator. I've run nursing homes in excess of $210 million. So I've worked a lot in healthcare, and I think a lot of it is society's not ready for that. To be honest, they're not ready for people walking down the street saying, "I've got a joint and I'm medical and I'm fine." They want it to be medicine, and a lot of times I tell people, smoking and medicine is not the best form in which to take that medicine. Yes. If it was, then we'd go down to Walgreens and we'd get a pack of whatever and we'd start smoking it and say it's medicine. So I think a lot of it is societal. I think eventually, maybe down the road, that can happen. Now, the Department of Health, or the state, actually, in the law, in Senate Bill 3 that was passed, they put a caveat in that the Department of Health can go back and allow, they call it flower or bud or whatever.
Buds, yeah.
So the technical term is flower. So they put it in there to where they can allow flower or plant material down the road without having to go back through the state legislature. So if the Department of Health determines that it's beneficial to patients and they can handle it, then they can change that at pretty much with just one vote.
Okay.
But down the road, they're going to wait to see how this all pulls out.
So if your doc, if you ask your doctor next time you see her or him, "Hey, doc, you gonna get certified so I can get some medical marijuana?" And they say no, and I don't believe in it.
Then the best way to do it is you go to the Department of Health. They're gonna have a website, and so on that website they'll have all the doctors who have taken the class to be able to be certified to recommend this medication. So typically, what we tell people is, most big companies, big healthcare companies, for example, I'm just giving an example, UPMC. I don't know what they're going to, I don't know what they're going to do.
I start getting tics when you say UPMC.
But remember, most physicians now, what people don't realize, most physicians are employees. They're just like a nurse.
That's true. They are now.
They're not, it's run by big business. So if I'm big business, do I really want to start doing these Schedule I recommendations and have the liability? So what we see, because our company studies this nationally and internationally, so what we see is usually it's the small local doc or the walk-in clinic doc or something like that.
Okay, so you're saying odds are,
right,
that all those UPMC docs
down the road they will.
Because they're
very risk adverse.
Jeffrey Romoff at the top, the CEO, is going to say,
Well, and also remember, if you're UPMC and you're recommending a Schedule I drug, they get most of their money from Medicare and Medicaid. Well, those are federal programs.
Yeah, well, they ain't gonna. Yeah.
Do they want to risk that?
No.
And
okay.
You see what I'm saying? Because
this is so nuts. It's just so nuts.
Right. It just doesn't make sense.
Okay, and because of that, none of this is covered by insurance companies.
Correct. And so you're not going to have any of it covered. Now, this is the challenge.
And how expensive is it?
Well, this is the thing. It's going to vary, and I tell people it's going to vary between $200 and $600 a month. And the reason it varies so much is depends on what kind of form you get. For example, if you get a skincare cream for a skin cancer, that may only be $60 for a jar. If you get the electronic cigarette vials, that could be $60 a piece, and you need maybe 3 a week. So it just depends on what your prescription is and what you need. Also, what typically happens, and I tell people this, I use the VCR example. if you're old enough as I am, when VCRs came out, they were $800, and now they don't exist. And CDs, the same thing, and DVD players. Yeah. The first time this comes out, it's supply and demand. The price will drop over time, and you're seeing that out west when you have more and more competition. So the price will drop, but the challenge is, you're right, it's not covered by insurance, and it will not be until it's scheduled, until the schedule changes from Schedule 1 to something else, because it's illegal.
How is that? And who makes that call? The schedule? Isn't that the FDA?
Well, it's very
got
funny.
It classified. I thought. I mean,
if it depends.
Come on,
right,
it's
Lynn,
not a Schedule 1. It's absurd.
You're preaching to the choir.
Well, but there's nobody in their right mind who would put it as a Schedule 1.
It was interesting. I don't know if there's any Richard Nixon fans, but it's come out now that his administration, it's now fact that they came out and said, we're going to make this illegal because we can't make being, and these are his words, we can't make being a minority illegal, and we can't make being a hippie illegal. So if we,
I saw the quote.
Yeah. So if we make marijuana illegal for hippies, then we can get them. If we make heroin illegal for the minorities, then we can get them.
It was really it was unbelievable.
It was horrible. And to me, we've taken this ideology now on for 40 years, and I think we're ready for something that makes sense, and I think this really makes sense. And our whole goal is, let patients understand that the biggest thing I want people to understand is this medicine's safe. Nobody's ever died in human history from marijuana. In history, that's like over 10,000 years.
And that's something. And think of alcohol, which
right.
is readily available. And
it kills over 50,000 people a year.
What the docs have been dispensing forever. The opioid stuff.
Lynn,
oh my God!
I gotta tell you, Lynn. So I had a pharmacist who's coming to the seminar, and talking to her because we had so many calls that my office manager was like, "You got to take some calls." I said, "Absolutely." So I was taking calls, and this pharmacist said, "I'm so tired of killing my patients with these prescription drugs. I need to do something different." And so our whole mantra is, our mission statement is to move society forward through legalized cannabis, because we feel once this becomes legal everywhere, the society will be better in a lot of different ways.
A lot of pain and suffering will be alleviated.
Yeah, and also this. In Colorado, now this is a study that they're doing right now, they're noticing domestic violence is decreasing since marijuana has been legal. That's huge. I mean, think about it. I hate to say this, if you're taking your medicine and you're not drinking alcohol, you're less likely to get upset.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. And so, and we, the police chief of the Washington, D.C. came out on record and said, marijuana is not a problem. Alcohol is our problem, because we don't have any problems with arresting people who have marijuana. It's the alcohol issue.
Well, the problem with marijuana criminally is the fact that it was criminalized.
Right. The worst part about marijuana is getting caught with it. Right, absolutely.
And also because it puts it underground, you have gangs, then you got all this nonsense, none of which has to happen.
And you know what? It's interesting because they're finding the cartels in Mexico, they're not doing anymore.
They're getting into the opioids. They're getting into fentanyl.
They're getting into all that.
I know.
They said there's no money in marijuana anymore because the prices dropped so much because you can get it in the U.S. They've actually found, Lynn, where people are trying to smuggle it from the United States into Mexico. How funny is that? I know. Things are changing, and we want to be that. We want to be that tip of the spear, I guess, to bring this into Pennsylvania and say, "Look, guys, these are all the opportunities you can do, and you can take this and run with it because there's so many."
Hey, if any of you want to jump in here and ask a question, feel free. I'll remind you of the phone number, 412. I always have to look because I never call it. 316-3381. You know how you don't know any phone numbers anymore?
Yeah.
Because they're all on. Okay, 316-3381. You can also email me at lynn@pghcitypaper.com. I'm talking to Michael Patterson, CEO of U.S. Cannabis Pharmaceutical Research and Development. There's a whole new industry that's popping up out of nowhere, and he's at the tip of the spear, and he's giving educational, you can tell, a ton of knowledge here. This is a 6.5-hour seminar on Saturday and on Sunday. Saturday's at the Pittsburgh Marriott, right over here, right near where the Penguins blew it. That's not. And then Sunday, June 12th, at the Pittsburgh Marriott North in Cranberry. It ain't free.
No. Tickets are $350, and people say, "Well, that's a lot of money." And we say, "You know what? You're right. What we do is we have found that when you make the price too low, you don't get people who are serious. And our whole goal is we want to get to the people who they'd want to do this as a career.
So they would look at this as an investment. Okay, I need to get information,
Right.
get off the ground.
And also, Lynn, we tell people if you're serious, you're going to have to go to an attorney and look at this. And attorneys are going to charge you what, $300 to $400 an hour?
Yeah.
We're going to do this for almost 7 hours. And so you're going to have an expert from Colorado and a medical expert to ask all the questions. We have attorneys come up to us and ask us questions because it's just so new.
So you're going to have attorneys in your audience who
we have attorneys,
paid $350 because they want to.
Well, to me, and for medical, when I go to seminars, that's what you pay as if an attorney or an accountant, professional seminar. This is typically what you pay. And actually, there was a seminar
for any continuing education.
Continuing education.
Yeah, right.
There was a competitor who did a seminar in Philadelphia, and it was $500, and we felt like that was too egregious. You know, to me, what we want to do is make sure that we get the right type of person, because we've got people who are coming who are worth hundreds of millions of dollars looking for partners because they need partners in Pennsylvania. They can't do this on their own.
So a lot of people just figure that big tobacco is going to end up taking over all of this. Is that?
Not yet, because until it's Schedule 1, as long as it's Schedule 1.
But as soon as it's Schedule, as soon as it's not, they won't just come in and
we're
right?
talking to big tobacco now. We're talking to groups. What we're finding is there's a lot of big groups. We actually do consulting with Fortune 500 companies who want to get into this industry. And what I tell people is right now they're kicking the tires. They're looking around. They're kind of saying, what is this about? And we worked with a international plastics manufacturer because they're looking into packaging. And what I tell people is you want big business in this in some way, shape, or form because they're going to bring in that technology. They're going to bring in the advancements. For example, we've seen a lot of advancements when I was talking to the plastics company regarding security. Because imagine when you ship this product from point A to point B, they have these GPS tracking plastic systems that are disposable. Imagine putting in those and you can track where the medicine is at all times. And so we need that innovation. And so the good thing is there's still enough for the little guy here in Pennsylvania because the way they did it is, to do a dispensary, the money requirements, you have to have $500,000 in capital, which is really, in a big business, that's really not a lot. And then you have to have $150,000 in cash just to apply. But,
jeez.
Right, well, the grower processor, you have to have $2 million in capital, and you have to have $500,000 in cash.
Okay, so where's the little guy figure into that?
Well, to me, there's a lot of places. Let me tell you. We've had groups where they have a bunch of pharmacists getting together to do a dispensary. Because remember, some people have $500,000 in equity in their home. So you could use that and then come up with the cash. But we're having groups come together to do this. And then what we're finding is for the little guy, there's a lot of places to fit in. One of which is you've got the ability to transfer. You can't transfer the license. My assistant's saying once you get a license, you can't transfer it. That's another reason why big business isn't coming in because you can't sell it. So say if I get a dispensary license, the state doesn't allow you to sell it. You have to keep it. You're not allowed to sell to anybody. So what the reason is they don't want a lot of people coming in here from out of state or big business just coming in. Some guy gets a license and just immediately sells it.
I see.
To somebody else.
Okay,
But the opportunities for the lower guy is they're going to have a lot of different jobs associated with this industry. For example, waste management. You can't just throw the material in the trash can.
Well, is it considered medical waste?
They're going to consider it like medical waste. The Department of Health hasn't come out with all the specific rules on how to do the waste, but you're going to have a licensed business. The entry point is going to be very low. So you're not going to have to pay a lot of money to do that. There's not going to be that many, but imagine if I'm a waste manager and I can go do 35, 40 dispensaries in a week. That's a lot. I mean, you can make some money. Also, transportation is going to be huge because you got 150 places and you got to get stuff from point A to point B in a safe manner. So the way this typically works is you could have a guy with a bunch of vans who they have to be built in a certain way and that type of things. But the overhead is really not that much. But what we tell people is you need to come because there's so many different jobs we hadn't even thought about. Human resources is huge. Payroll is huge because remember, a lot of places you can't use banks because it's illegal federally. I know, Lynn. It gets more complicated than this. So then there's tax implications because you're selling an illegal product. But don't worry, the IRS is still going to get their money. Don't worry, but there's a tax code called IRS 280E, and what that says is that you're not allowed to deduct sales of the medicine because it's illegal federally. So if I own a dispensary, technically I cannot deduct any of the cost of that medicine at all because it's illegal federally. They set this back up in the 80s for the drug dealers.
Well,
Right.
so these are, I mean, there's a lot of...
It's a lot of information. So usually one of our feedback that we got from our seminars in Philadelphia, Lynn, was like, this easily could have been a 2-day seminar. We're like, we're right. But what we wanted to do is give people the framework of how this is going to work so they understand what they're going to get into if they want to move forward. That's our main goal.
Well, I'm thinking of a lot of starry-eyed people who said to me, hey, man, I mean, no, you ain't, apparently, because this is much more...
Well, remember, there's levels. So I tell people, if you're going to go for the highest level, you're going to need a lot of money. But if you want to be a team member, for example, I talk to a lot of pharmacists. These pharmacists are getting calls out of the blue, and they don't know who they're from because they're like, hey, do you want to get in this business? Because as we talked off air, when you have a dispensary, you have to have a pharmacist or a physician pretty much at almost every facility at all times in order to be open. It's pretty much like a pharmacy is now. So that's up to 150 new pharmacists they're going to need to work this industry that currently are working in other places. So that's a huge opportunity. And if I'm a pharmacist and I can start learning this business now and get in now, imagine what's going to happen in 5 years as this business grows. And then opportunities not just here, but what's going to happen is as other states move forward in legalization, then you can be in Pennsylvania and say, I'm already in the business in Pennsylvania. I can go help somebody in another state and help them move forward. So we call it, you have the ability to pay it forward at a lot of different places, but what we try to tell people is about vision. You need to see where this is going to go, and no matter when you get in, this is going to be the easiest and best time.
Now would
right.
be now would
it's
be
not going to be super easy, but it's only going to get harder, and that's what we tell people.
And there's no doubt about the fact that this whatever industry, whatever it is going to grow.
Yeah, no pun intended.
No pun intended. I mean, it
Right.
is going to grow.
And what we're finding is in states where this is legal, the prescription medications that people are taking are going down 2 to 3 a month. So imagine you're taking more medical marijuana. And let me give you a perfect example. In Canada, where this is legal through socialized medicine, the state, the country pays for it, their veterans for the Canadian military are now they're starting to see a rise in medical marijuana prescriptions and a decrease in opiates, which is great.
Thank God.
Right. And so to me, they're on the right track.
Wow. Well, we're a little slow on the uptake here.
Yeah. But you know what? You're faster than a lot of groups. Like, I'm originally from North Carolina. If people can tell from my accent, no, I'm not from Alabama. Everybody says, are you from Alabama? No. But my state is so backwards. As you see the bathroom bill and all that other stuff, it's just it's just fear. I see a lot of the world is moving very fast. And typically in the South, as you know, things don't move that fast.
No, they're a little recalcitrant.
Right. They want to stay in their little bubble. So what we want to do is if we can bring validity to this industry and show people, look, we're professionals, we're doing this, we want to make sure things get better for everybody, and we want to bring other people along to say, look, expose them to the opportunities, because as more professional and really smart law-abiding people get into this, then more people will respect it and it will become just like any other form of medicine. Without
a doubt. So I'm curious about a few things in some of the information you gave me. First of all, I'm really curious about this Israeli study that you note that says humans are predisposed to accept cannabis
Absolutely.
in their bodies.
So basically, through research, they found that our bodies have what they call a endocannabinoid system. And so marijuana has cannabinoids.
Yeah, it does.
So basically, I tell people it's kind of like a lock and key system. So your body, that's why nobody's ever died from this. So your bodies think about it, over evolution, our bodies have been predisposed to accept this. I mean, this medicine goes back tens of thousands of years.
It's one of the greatest plants ever created.
And my partner, Michael Vischer, he gives this example. He goes, if you're stranded on a desert island and you only have one plant, you want it to be the cannabis or hemp plant. He goes, not only can it feed you, it can clothe you, it can build your house, and it can make you feel better.
That's right. Right? Yeah. What else do you need?
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
It's unbelievable.
Right. It's an
and
amazing
that's
plant.
the one that we've demonized. We're nuts.
And you know, it's only been illegal for 1% of human history. So let's put it in perspective. So they've actually found where they've dug up people in Egypt, the pharaohs, they actually have hemp or cannabis in the sarcophagus. Is that what it is?
Yeah, I guess.
So
Yeah, right.
to me, there's got to be something, and there's got to be something to this. If it's humans have had this for so long. Remember, the first bills were printed on hemp paper. It was required by law to grow hemp.
George Washington grew hemp. They
Right.
all grew hemp.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just the greatest plant in the universe. Oh, this makes me crazy. I always thought Pennsylvania was pretty backward, and I'm a little shocked they did this. But they'll.
And not only that, I got to say, we're so happy because the Department of Health came out and said we're going to try to get the children who need it to be able to access it in other
Right.
states.
Right.
To me, I'm loving it because they're really listening to the citizens of PA.
That's what's happening.
And I love it because the people have the power. And also, the other reason I love it is because it doesn't matter about political party. Everybody's kind of on the same page. And this is the one thing in a political season that we can actually rally around, all of us together as Americans and especially people in Pennsylvania, to say, look, this is something as society, we want to move forward to make society better.
But this is did you ever answer the question about how do we get it off the Schedule 1 stuff? So a lot of this crap that's involved doesn't have to be. It's insane.
And you know what? That's a great question. So let me tell you. Let's wade through more of the federal government's kind of unclear areas. So basically, you ask the president, and the president says Congress has to do it. You ask Congress, and they said the DEA has to do it. You ask the DEA, and they said, well, we need a study to be able to get. We need a request for the FDA to be able to.
But they don't let them have the stuff to do a study.
Right. So they say, well, there's no evidence that this medicine helps because they don't allow.
But they don't allow the research.
Well, recently they did allow one, and let me tell you what it was. So there's a group called MAPS, which is out of California, and they applied for a study to study PTSD in veterans of U.S. veterans. Now, the study was to be able to smoke marijuana. What people don't realize is that study was just approved. However, they applied for the study 10 years ago. And so they've just been dragging their feet. Now, I don't know if you know, I think her name's Loretta Lynch. She's a former DEA.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, she got kicked out because of all the stuff. She was totally anti-cannabis and anti-marijuana. And so now the new DEA director, he's taking a softer approach. They have big problems.
Wait. Loretta Lynch was head of the DEA?
No, she's the attorney general.
She's now the attorney general.
I'm thinking about something that I forgot. I think her name was Loretta, but it was a different person. Anyway, they have
Loretta Lynn.
Yeah,
That's the only other one I can think of. Loretta Young.
But the new DA director, he's taking a different approach because what's happening is opiates are taking over.
Well, I think we've all learned a lot about opiates in the last year.
And now they're using marijuana to help get people off of opiates, which is amazing.
Oh, dear God.
So it's a great time. It's a great time to be in Pennsylvania. It's a great time to be a citizen and to have that effect. And so basically, to answer your question, it's a muddled area. Right now, the DEA is scheduled to come out and rule on whether they're going to change the schedule by July.
Well,
now,
as more states do the medical, how many states have medical?
Well, right now, technically, there's 25. However, we're halfway there, but you have to really read the regulation, and this is what we talk about. For example, Ohio just passed legislation to legalize. However, they didn't give any specifics, zero. And they said, we're going to wait a year just to write it. Now, to me, personally, there was a ballot initiative in Ohio to make this fully legal. Well, all of a sudden, once they passed this, the ballot initiative just went away. So it makes me wonder, was there something going on to where the legislature said, hey, don't do this ballot initiative, we'll just pass something real quick, and so you're not going to do the ballot
I thought they
initiative.
had the ballot initiative sort of gave the entire industry to one specific business.
That was last year. This is
new ballot. This is new.
Yeah, the old ballot initiative was horrible. I agree.
Even people who were for...
I was against it because
we're against
you're creating monopolies, and I don't
Right.
want that. Everybody needs to be able to have a participation in this business. But the new ballot initiative was backed by a group called the Marijuana Policy Project. And what they were doing was they said, you know what, we're going to make this to where people don't realize when it's a ballot initiative, it goes to constitutional amendment. The legislature can't do anything. It's on the Constitution. So they don't want that. Legislators want control. And so all of a sudden, the minute that they passed it, the Marijuana Policy Project announced that they're leaving the state of Ohio. And they're not going to finish because they had to still get more signatures and money. So I'm hoping Ohio moves forward. But, for example, in Georgia, it's technically legal. But let me tell you what the legal is. If you can somehow get it to Georgia, we won't arrest you. That's it. You can't buy it. You can't sell it. You can't do anything else. But if you can somehow get it here and don't get arrested, then we won't arrest you.
So that's one of the 25 states. That's
right.
Yeah,
and now in Florida, our home state is silly because they call it a CBD law, which is the cannabinoids, the stuff in marijuana. CBD is one of those cannabinoids which has been proven to help with seizures and things with children. So right now the law says if you're a child with intractable seizures, you can get this medicine. They only have 5 growers in the whole state. And then they put in a caveat to say, unless you've been a grower of plants like Home Depot plants, those smaller plants or something for your yard, unless you've been growing 60,000 plants a year for the last 30 years, you're not allowed to apply for a grower license in Florida. It was such a kickback to somebody. I don't know who it was, but
there was like one person who met the
I looked it up. There was 40 people in the whole state who qualified, and all these guys are like in their 60s. They didn't know anything about it. So you really have to read between the lines, and that's what we do in the seminars. Like, we give everybody the actual data. We don't talk about ideology. We talk about rules and how your business or your plan can fit in. And also, we stay there until the last person has questions. Typically, we stay there for almost 2 hours afterwards and answer all the questions people have because we want people to be informed.
Give me some of the most the questions that I have not asked and that they ask, people who are really wanting to get in.
Can I go grow this in a national park? No.
Are you kidding me? That's the kind of question.
Well, some of those. A lot of them are more technical. For example, I got a pharmacist, and he came up and he said he wants to start a dispensary. And he said, I said, remember, when you do this, I was telling him about the tax implications. Because he's like, look, I know how to budget to do a pharmacy, and I can do X amount of product, and I'm going to make X amount of dollars. I'm like, yeah, that's great. But what about when your taxes are 70%? He's like, what are you talking about? So we talked about because
you can't deduct any.
You can't deduct any cost of sales. So what we talk about in seminars, how do you structure your business?
Is there a way?
Yeah, basically you have to. It gets kind of technical when we talk about the seminar, but basically you have to decrease your square footage in that you sell the medicine. So if I have 1,000 square foot facility or 2,000 square feet, maybe I sell the medicine in like 400 square feet. So I can't deduct the 400 square feet, but I can deduct the rest. Also, you can't deduct the sales cost of the people, the employees, anything. Okay. And then also remember, if you can't use banks, then you're using cash. You have a cash business. And so my partner Mike in Colorado, he pays all his employees in cash. So, and they get a little stub and everything, and he's his own bank. So right now, no banks in Pennsylvania have signed up to do this, and I don't know if they will. In defense of a bank, it's just it's very difficult. They have to follow all these rules from the federal government about like going in and saying, okay, you have to do these suspicious activity reports. And basically, they have to bring on tons of people at the bank in order to do this because it's just a lot of work. And then they still have to worry about getting convicted of money laundering as a business, as a bank. Because remember, you're money laundering.
Well, you got to be then a real tough risk taker in some ways to get in at this level.
Yeah, and what I tell people is regulation is your friend. And Pennsylvania has good regulation. So typically what that means is you're a lot less likely for the feds to bust your door open and take you to prison than you are, say, in California. Because California...
It's so wide open.
Yeah, what happened is they passed a law in 1996 legalizing medical marijuana. But usually when you pass a law, you usually have something in the law. All they said was, we passed the law. And the only caveat they put in there is that you have to be zoned for a medical marijuana dispensary. They didn't put what type of medication, they didn't put how you make it, they didn't put who can do it, they didn't do anything. So what happened was a lot of the local police didn't know the rules, they just started arresting people. Every municipality is different. So here in Pennsylvania, it's very clear cut.
Well, the other thing about California is it's just wide open there. I know I have a relative who can dispense.
Right.
And they carry, all this. I don't know many people who haven't enjoyed some medical marijuana from California.
Yeah, to me, if
that's not going to help the overall legalization effort.
And it won't. I think that what we need to do as a society is we need to say, you know what, either this is medicine or it's recreational.
Exactly.
And so here in Pennsylvania, they decided this is medical, so let's treat it like a medical object.
Okay.
Let's treat it. Let's put in the rules for safety and so forth and so on.
You have little doubt that it'll recreational. How many years before we just stop this nonsense and make it
It's
available?
a tough question. Now, regardless of if recreational goes legal, you're still going to have a medical system here.
Yeah.
Pennsylvania, what I found out, I thought Florida was the oldest state by population. It turns out I think Pennsylvania is the oldest state by population, which you wouldn't think.
Oh, I thought we were second.
No,
Yeah,
well, first, second, you're up there.
I know,
So the good
I
thing,
know.
Lynn, is
And
you
I'm
guys
helping.
you're taking the lead in this. And what I tell a lot of people is right now, depending on how Pennsylvania goes, is how the rest of the country is going to go, at least on the East Coast. Everybody's looking at you. I've got clients in Italy. I got clients in Spain. They're looking at you. Everybody's looking at Pennsylvania and saying, whatever they do, I feel this legislation is so strong, this is going to be the template that all the other states follow. It's that
I find
good.
that so hard to believe.
Yeah,
Because
I'm impressed.
Because I'm always making fun of our legislators.
To
So I
me,
mean, they did this one right.
I think they really did. I think they really listened to the people,
Okay.
which is good.
Okay. This is from Jim in Toronto. Medical marijuana is legal in Canada, but not part of the health insurance system. It is all out of pocket. The visit to the doctor, normally a naturopath, is covered in Ontario as of a few months ago. So they're evolving.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, a lot of it, we get the information over the wire about Canada. I just saw an article that said something about the Canadian Health Ministry is seeing more prescriptions for medical marijuana in Canada, and I assumed from what if it's through the Health Ministry, I thought they paid for it. But thank you, Jim, for clarifying.
Thank you. Henry writes, first, I'd like to say that the cannabis industry has been alive and well in my basement since about 1968.
We see a lot of it. We had a guy in Philadelphia, I got to tell you, Lynn, he said, I've been growing this for 30 years.
Yeah, sure.
And they said, is there any way I can take that experience into doing it? And then we told them how to do that.
Okay. But then he says, seriously, for those people who don't have the money or desire to own a dispensary or farm, what skill sets are being hired by this new industry? Software, security, agriculture, what else? He's curious.
And I got to tell you, Henry, that's a great question. And what we see is exactly right. Software, we have a lot of software companies looking at this because security is so huge. One of the things that the state is looking at is they're looking at a real-time system to be able to, if the police pull you over and you have your medical marijuana in the car, they can scan the back of your medical marijuana card like a driver's license, and they can tell you exactly how much you should have on you, who your doctor is, what your prescription is, and what form of the marijuana you should have, whether it be a gel, cream, solid, whatever. So security is going to be huge. Agriculture, Henry, with agriculture, you're going to see growing, just like you said, about if you have experience in growing, all these growers are going to need people to help them. Because even if they come in from out of state, for example, there's a gentleman here in Pittsburgh who's partnering with a group called Medicine Man out of Colorado, and they're well-known group. They're going to need local people to help them grow because you can't just grow with one person. You need a team, so people who know how to grow. And so that's
would the growth in like Pennsylvania be indoors?
Yeah, everything has to be indoors.
Everything has to be indoors.
And it can't be in a greenhouse. Everybody's like, okay, I'll do a greenhouse. No, and to be honest,
why not?
Because it's not secure enough. If I can just go up with a baseball bat and break a glass door or glass something, then I can go in and get all the plants. So I think eventually down the road, I think they'll allow greenhouses, but right now they want a steel secure structure. But the other jobs, Henry, we see accounting jobs, legal jobs. We see a lot of, like we mentioned before, transportation jobs. We see a lot of, imagine you could be a dispensary technician. You can just sit there and work in the dispensary. And a lot of the other jobs we haven't even thought of until the industry gets set up. I mean, one of them is packaging is a huge job if you're going to work with a packaging company. The thing about the cash, that's going to be you're going to have people have to know how to deal with cash and not deal with banks, and that's going to be a nightmare. And so we have some ways and some different things that have been done in the past. But we have a gentleman who owns a medical transport company. He's looking to get into transportation. So everybody's coming at this from a different angle. And a lot of times I tell people, look, if you don't know what angle you're going to have, come to the seminar because you're going to think about stuff we haven't thought of yet. Because there's a lot of this is brand new. Brand spanking new. So we're coming at it and we're going to try to give that angle of all the things that we know. And we've had people come up and say, have you thought about this? I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. We'll have to pass that on to other people. So again, we don't know everything, but we do know a lot, and we want to give that information to everybody else. Also janitorial. You can have whole janitorial services to be able to come out. You're going to have irrigation companies. You're going to have air conditioning, HVAC companies are going to have to get into this. Contractors are going to have to get into this. So there's a lot of different jobs in the environment. In the area here that can definitely benefit.
Good God. Interesting, huh? And you thought it was just about helping a kid who had seizures.
It is, and
It's
and one of the things I think is the people with the kids with seizures get a lot of attention, and rightly so. But we want to make sure that seniors. What I typically find is seniors are the ones who have been against this for so long. But I'm the one. My background's been in senior healthcare for over 22 years. I want to say, look at this to help you. Look at this for this medication to be able to benefit you, so you have a better life and not be dependent on opioids. And I have a lot of people with Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis.
Does it help that?
The studies have shown that
But how did there can't be studies in this country?
Well, there's other countries, Lynn. I know, believe it or not.
That is a shock to any American system.
Yeah.
There are other countries?
Yeah, Israel is one of the biggest leaders in marijuana research. And so currently, and if you're in a nursing home in Israel, the nurse brings you a pipe and puts the marijuana in it, and you smoke it.
I am so there.
Yeah, and to them, they've been doing it. I've actually got to meet the guy who did the study. And so it's so interesting to hear their philosophy. And they said they took it from a clinical research approach, and they took it from facts. They didn't take it off of ideology, and they found it really, really works.
I think another thing that marijuana would do for older people is that a lot of older people are isolated and depressed.
Mm-hmm. And also,
they
people
lose
don't
their
realize
appetites. All of that stuff is what marijuana does.
And Lynn, let me tell you, I've seen so many ladies in their late 70s, late 80s, even late 90s, who they can't gain weight. They don't have an appetite. They don't eat as much as they should. And then these doctors really don't. There's not a lot of medications out there that'll help. There's one that's called Marinol. It's a derivative of marijuana. It really doesn't work that well. It works okay, but the challenge is when you break up marijuana and you try to create a prescription drug, you cannot patent a plant. And so you can't patent
Thank God.
Right. Anything that occurs natural in nature, you cannot patent. So what these companies do is they go out and they take a slice of that plant and they say, okay, we're going to take this slice and we're gonna make it legal. Now there's one company out of England called GW Pharmaceuticals, and what they've done is they've developed two products. One's called Eplodex, which is it's going to be coming on the market soon, which is for seizures for children. And it's going to be outrageously expensive, like, I don't know, a couple $1,000s. All it is it's a slice of the marijuana plant. Or when the marijuana dispensary is open, you can go and get it probably for like $300-400 a month for your child, and it's going to work better. Because research is showing that marijuana is what they call has an entourage effect. And what that means is it's better together than apart. The plant was put together for a reason by God, and
God knew what he was doing.
Right,
okay?
exactly.
Stop messing with it.
And so the plant works better when it's in its whole form rather than
you know
sliced.
what? It just occurred to me with these GMOs. Is that what it is? No, genetically modified. Yeah. They can patent those, can't they? Can they screw around with marijuana and then just make it into a Franken thing and patent
They could.
that?
What we're seeing is companies like, I guess, Syngenta and big ADM, I think it is. Some of these companies are trying to patent certain strains of marijuana, so they're trying to create their own strains. And to me, that's where the challenge. You can't patent a product that's Schedule 1. So right, but some of these companies imagine. But you know what? Who can? The federal government. The federal government has a patent on marijuana as a neuroprotectant, and it's amazing that they have a patent on it, but yet it's illegal.
You know,
I know.
Insane. Okay, here's another question. Who is able to develop the products, like the creams and gels?
That comes through the grower processors. So basically, the grower processors are in charge of actually growing the medication, and then they have to. They have to make it. They have to convert it into a cream or a gel and things like that. Mainly oils too. So what you're going to see is you're going to have a lot of growers who come together with somebody who knows how to process, and so they have to have all that machinery in their facility. So imagine the space you have to grow all the marijuana. It's a lot of space, and on top of that, you have to have the room.
Like, what's a reasonable number of plants that a grower is going to have in a steel building?
To give you an idea, this varies, but typically you need anywhere between probably 55 and 65 pounds of marijuana material to get 1 gallon of oil. So if you have an oil, it depends on the plant, the strain, but that's an average. So anybody who's a really good grower, if I'm off on my numbers, feel free to email us and let us know. This is not my specialty. My partner, Michael Vischer, he's the growing expert. Okay. But if you're talking about 50-some pounds and each plant delivers almost about a pound of material, than, in 1 pound.
Well, it's huge.
Yeah, and typically what we're seeing is grows start maybe about 10,000 square feet, and eventually you'll have 250,000 square feet, maybe across multiple buildings. But what a lot of people don't realize is that you can't just, it's not advised to just have a big, huge building and just grow a bunch of plants, because it's agriculture. So what happens if you get mites or a disease or something? It could kill your whole crop. So we go into that a little bit about in the seminar about how you should grow if you're not familiar with it. It's not a growing seminar by any means. We just touch on it a little bit because it's exciting. It's fun. I mean, I sit in there and I love to hear about the growing and how it works.
So growing, I mean, if it's agriculture, then you're dealing with zoning laws about where you can locate and stuff like that. And so give me a sense of what a dispensary looks like. They don't need a lot of space.
No, they don't. And
so it's a little
it'll basically be
storefront.
it'll be like a Walgreens. It won't
But
be.
a Walgreens, I could think of as big.
Well, they're not going to sell all that other stuff. But this is the
you
thing.
got one product.
Right. Remember, in the legislation it states that you can grow, you can have services or products related to marijuana.
Oh.
So, say for example, if you wanted to do a dispensary and you wanted to have education classes or something there about the medicine or how to make it into cookies or something like that. You can't do it yourself. I mean, you can't make the cookies yourself, but you can teach people how to do it. Also, there's ideas about maybe having massage there, or maybe having acupuncture there, so you can offset the cost. Selling T-shirts. I mean, you can do a lot of different stuff because it helps. The state put that in there because they realized the legal
Because of the tax
because of
stuff
the tax implications. So they wanted to make sure these places can actually make a little bit of money. Because remember, as a citizen, you want the stores to make money, because if the stores don't make money, then we're back to the black market. We need to have the stores be successful. That doesn't mean they should be egregious in how much money they charge, but at first, like I keep telling them, the prices will be high and they'll come down later because they have to put so much energy and time into this. And a lot of people may not realize is the more regulation you put on, the more cost you incur. And so that's one of the reasons big pharmaceuticals are so expensive, is because the regulation through the FDA is just astronomical for what these people have to do.
What about, does the state gain anything through taxation of these operations?
What they're going to do is they're going to tax it at 6%, and so that money is going to go into a fund, and they're breaking it up based on percentages. For example, I think 30% is going to go to research, 5% is going to the police, and then I think 30 or 40% goes to the general fund to keep this going. And you want that. You want to be able to have this fund so you can pay for the surveys and the auditors. But an interesting caveat is, and part of the evaluation process, and the Department of Health is going to do this, is that if you get audited, you're going to have unannounced and announced audits. And if you come in for an unannounced audit and they find problems, not only do you have to fix the problems, the state will bill you for all the time incurred to investigate you. So it's your incentive to be compliant. And we tell people this all the time. You're not in the marijuana business, you're in the compliance business. Because if you're not compliant, you're not in business.
You're in trouble.
Right. So the state is looking for groups, whether it be a dispensary or grower processor, to have somebody with some sort of medical background to make sure they can follow these rules.
So how many people come eagerly into your seminar and leave depressed?
A lot of them, you know what? A lot of them, I gotta say, they're not depressed at all. They just say, "Okay, now I know what to expect. Now I know what I need to do." Now, do we have a little bit of the deer in the headlights? Yes, that's definitely.
I bet this is much more complicated than I would have thought.
It is, and that's what we usually get. But I gotta tell you, Lynn, when people walk out of that room, they know more than 99% of the people in the state. And knowledge is power, because remember, everything's kind of getting ready to take off right now. And so if you know the angle, and we tell people, we have a lot of accountants looking at this saying, hey, maybe I can specialize in this entire industry.
Wow.
Because it really doesn't matter. You don't need to be in Pittsburgh to help somebody in Philly or Allentown. You can be you can be anywhere if you're an accountant, and you can go service an entire state. Law firms are looking at this, and maybe we can help entire states. We have a group that we partner with from a law firm called Capozzi Adler. They're out of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And the reason we partnered with them is because they've dealt with the Department of Health for 22 years in the state of Pennsylvania. And so with my background in dealing with skilled nursing, I know them. I've worked with them before. So I know that they're dedicated. And I got to tell you, they're I wouldn't call them, for attorneys, risk takers, but they're willing to do something a little bit outside the box. And to me, any partner you get in this business, you need to have somebody who can go with the flow and go with change. This is not a business that's set like a business that's been around for 100 years. You got to be willing to move, and you're and something that my partner talks about in the seminar is that whatever the rules are now, they're going to evolve, and they're going to be different maybe in 5 or 10 years. when you're dealing with state and federal regulation, it never decreases.
Oh.
It only increases. So now in skilled nursing world, we deal with about 2,000 pages of regulation. Back in the 60s, there was like 20. You know, so people need to understand.
So if
where
they
this
think
is
it's
going.
complicated now, it's going to be more.
Well, it is, and so it will be more complicated. But remember, once you're in the business, then you'll get used to it, and it's not a big deal. And so they'll add a little bit here and there, but you want them to take away stuff and maybe add stuff that's more pertinent. That'll help people and make sure this stays safe and secure.
So if this is piquing your interest, the reason that Michael Patterson is here is to do 2 seminars, one on Saturday, tomorrow, one on Sunday. They're both at Marriott hotels, Saturdays downtown at the Pittsburgh Marriott City Center, and Sunday in Cranberry at the Pittsburgh Marriott North. And they run from 9:30 to 4. And it's $350. They'll take cash or they'll take a credit card.
And people can register at our website, which is uscprd.com. uscprd.com.
Which stands for U.S. Cannabis Pharmaceutical Research and Development. And this guy's in on the ground floor, and this is something that is really happening. Let me get your, because we got a little bit of time left. Let me get your sense of where of the experiment in Colorado with recreational marijuana. They've had some issues, or they're loving it because of all the money coming.
Well,
what? Tell me
it's
what
a
are the
loaded
big
question,
issues.
Lynn. Overall, I think overall, since it's a brand new program, they have had some frustrating points. For example, there's a gentleman who took too many edibles. Those are the things you can eat and everything. The problem with edibles, or somebody who doesn't understand this medicine, who's never taken it, is a delayed effect.
I know.
So what happens is, okay, I take one, nothing happens. 15 minutes later, I take 3, and then 5 hours, 2 hours later, they're just like on the floor. But I think a lot of that, what happened was the state of Colorado did not educate people. One of the great things that came out of that, was standard dosing. So what they figured out is 10 milligrams is the standard dose now, no matter what state you go to. So if I get a pill or gel or whatever, you're going to see, Pennsylvania will probably do this too when they write the day-to-day rules, is every single dose needs to be 10 milligrams. So if you're taking another pill, an antibiotic, the milligram dosage, and most of them are pretty much standard. And so that's one of the great things that came out of it. Then you see a lot of ingenuity. For example, I was reading online that there was a group called, they have a bus that goes around town in Denver.
I've heard this.
And then you're allowed to smoke on the bus or use your cannabis on the bus. They don't provide it. You provide your own. That's considered a private area.
Yes,
so
right.
You can go do this loop tour of the I think they call it Looper or Loop. And so imagine getting on that. And to me, that's an entrepreneur. And so what we did see is Mike, my partner, talks about this in the seminar. He said it was just the wild, wild west. He said he had a dispensary, and some guy would come in with 10 pounds of weed and say, hey, I got 10 pounds of weed for sale. What do you want to buy? And they'd sift through it and oh, this looks good. This looks good. There was no medical test. There was no laboratory testing.
That's really outrageous.
Yeah, it was the wild
west. Also, the
west.
buyer doesn't know what they're getting either.
Right.
Then.
And so what you're seeing now, and a lot of that, since it's the Wild West, you're starting to see lawsuits regarding the chemicals they put on the products. And so this is what me, as a nursing home operator, and I ran pharmacies, I hate to say it, as nursing home operators, we got sued all the time. So, I mean, you hear the advertisements, but it taught me a lot about risk and how to avoid that risk. And so for me, I see these things that have happened in Colorado and say, these are the things you need to prepare for. You need to prepare for the lawsuits. You need to prepare for the disgruntled employees. And so we tell everybody right now, when you own these businesses, the state currently has a process of unannounced and announced visits. They call them audits. They do this in healthcare. The most common reason for an unannounced visit is a disgruntled employee that you had to let go or for some reason. So if the marijuana people getting in this business, they understand that they need to have their systems ready, because what's going to happen is the state's going to come in unannounced, and they're going to find all this stuff, and they could shut you down. You could lose your license. So you really need to understand how to stay compliant, because if you have a great product and a great business but you're not compliant,
you're done.
You're not in business anymore.
Right? Yeah. The edibles seem to be a real issue,
and that's
problem.
why Pennsylvania said no, not right now. We don't want that right now.
Well, yeah. I had a friend who was a reporter at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette who went to Colorado for some event and bumped into an old friend, and they went and bought some cookies or something and ate them, and then went to lunch at some restaurant or something, and all of a sudden her friend went face down in the plate.
That's a little extreme.
And my friend, Mackenzie, is like freaking out. I mean, they call 911 and they come, and as they're loading her friend in, one of the EMTs looks at my Mackenzie and says, "Are you okay?" And she wasn't either. She was so she's thrown in the back.
Yeah.
She wrote a hysterical piece about what happened. But she was terrified,
Right.
and because it hits long after it's going through your digestive system.
And everybody's
And these
different.
are people who don't normally smoke.
And that's the problem, because you get people who, it's like if I went out and drank a liter of vodka.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
exactly. I mean,
it's just people just don't understand, and so a lot of it is education. And one of the things the state did here is they're going to put on a toll-free number for questions, and they're going to put on a website that people can go to for questions, which is great. You got to educate the public because this is so new. Nobody knows anything about it. So we're not going to have those problems in Pennsylvania because they're not going to have edibles. And then also don't forget they're going to have a whole caregiver system, so they can pick up the medication for these patients who are like, say they can't get out of their house. You'll be able to have, if you're a patient who qualifies, you can have up to 2 caregivers who can go get your medicine for you. They can bring it home for you. They can make your cookies for you. They can do all this type of stuff. So I see a whole industry starting up around caregivers in this state, to where maybe if I'm a shut-in and I don't know where a caregiver is, I could call a 1-800 number and find a caregiver. And so you could have a caregiver locator service. There's a free idea right there if somebody wants to do it. So coming to our seminar, we'll tell you how to do it. So there's a lot of legalities, but you know what? This is the thing where people who come to these seminars who are entrepreneurial in nature, they think about all these different things.
Well,
and so we can answer those questions for them.
there are clearly a ton of opportunities here, but knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
In this regard, this guy's got the knowledge, and if you want the power that comes with it, you might want to go to one of these seminars. $350 per person, about 7 hours of information coming your way tomorrow and Sunday. Tomorrow at the Marriott City Center, right near Consul. Not that I want to bring that up. And on Sunday, the Pittsburgh Marriott North in Cranberry. Well, this was fascinating.
Oh, well, we had a great time. I love coming on the radio and talking to people. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Especially get to meet you, Lynn.
Oh, yeah.
World famous Lynn Cullen.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll tell you, you're quite a talker, and I'm a talker, too, so I know a talker when I see one. Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Good luck. And you guys, have a great weekend, and go Pens! We don't need to win it here. We don't need to win it here. Sunday night, do it. Do it. Please, I can't take any more. I swear I can't. I'm going to die. Goodbye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.